Station and the Ad Council.
The views and opinions expressed during this program are not necessarily those of Overseas Radio Network, the Expat Broadcasting Group, the staff, management, or broadcast partners. All information provided is for educational purposes only. Before taking action, consult a licensed professional.
The Coast to Coast.
Check 1, 2. Testing.
Now hear me.
You're listening to This Week in Costa Rica.
Once the volume control is set, do not readjust.
On the Overseas Radio Network.
That's why I want you to go on the radio.
This Week in Costa Rica, bringing you the latest information from expats, experts, and people just like you who chose to escape, retire, and live in Costa Rica.
Listen and decide in your own mind what sounds best.
Got a question? A comment?
They have to be dealt with on an altogether different level.
Or just want to talk to an expert on living in Costa Rica?
Oh, brother, what a way to make a living.
Give us a call now.
Hello?
Lines are open and your answers are just one phone call away.
Now, if you have some suggestions to offer, we're willing to listen to you.
Ready?
This Week in Costa Rica with your host,
Who you?
Corey Coates.
And now, folks, it's showtime.
Welcome to This Week in Costa Rica. I am Corey. You and I are going to spend 2 hours together talking all things Costa Rica. Coming to you here live from the Overseas Radio Broadcast Facility in Jaco Beach, Costa Rica on the West Coast. This beautiful jewel of a nation. Thank you very much for joining me today. My apologies for taking the week off last week, but you know what? I made the executive decision and said, hey, after the Semana Santa went by, my friends came in and visited. And I had so much fun out there. I thought it'd be nice to maybe take a day off and run a repeat. I do apologize, but I'm back to work today and here to serve you in any way that I can. I got an exciting lineup today of guests and a couple things that I want to address here on the program. We've been getting a lot of email lately from listeners here in the great Republic of Costa Rica and the United States of America and Canada as well. Many of the emails have been very kind. A lot of people listen to the program and find it informative, funny, or interesting. Thank you. Others who say, look, man, you're wrong about so many things. And I thank you very much for those emails as well. To be honest with you, again, I'm not here to eschew these hard topics. I'm not here to make this pure editorial. And I'm definitely not here to argue with people over the internet, because that's not what I do. What I am here to do, though, is say, look, my name is Corey. I've been here 7 years. I don't know everything, but I'd like to help you learn everything. And the best way to do that is to have a guy like me, boots on the ground, contact people based on your questions, comments, and feedback, and see if I can provide you a personal and first-person account to help you understand the information you might need to know before you move here. Info at thisweekincostarica.com is the email address that you can send your questions and comments to me. As one of my guests did today, Trevor Chilton, fellow Canadian, had a lot to say about some of the comments that I made about the electricity rates here in Costa Rica, argues that perhaps it is not the cost per kilowatt hour that is dinging me, that made my hydro bill, or the electricity bill rather, go from $230 a month to $300 a month in 4 months. Suggests that maybe it's the construction of the condo that I'm living in. Interesting idea. Rather than get in a big argument with a guy on the internet, I think the better thing to do is bring him on the show. So I got him coming up on the second half of this hour. Because it turns out, when you pull on a thread in this country, you might get the whole sweater to unravel. Trevor has a really interesting business called Casas in Escazú. And we're going to talk more about that in the bottom half of this hour today. Largely because what he's providing is some information and a service that I think is unique and interesting and necessary in this country for those who are thinking of coming down here and buying or building. So I'm very much looking forward to having that conversation with him shortly. Largely because we get a lot of questions about buying or building here in Costa Rica. And Lyle and I field those to the best of our abilities, but he indeed is an expert in this field. And as a fellow North American, can communicate some of these ideas to you guys in a way that you would understand very well. Myself included, because when it comes to this sort of stuff, I'm a little bit dense. And when you live in a foreign country and you're having contract work done, dense means broke. Basically, you're writing checks to people to get stuff done. So looking forward to that conversation with Trevor. As well, Lyle promised me he's coming in for the second hour today of this program to chat about all things Hako, the wrap-up of the Semana Santa here, and talk a little bit more lifestyle. I always love when Lyle comes in because it's enjoyable conversation about how he and I are finding ways to improve our lives and the lives of others. And the idea behind it is really this. Not two guys sitting around bragging about living in Costa Rica, though it does sometimes get that way. More talking about or speaking to the generation of expats that's coming up. And this is a topic that's getting covered not only here, but throughout the entire Overseas Radio Network. This sort of changing of the guard, this influx of expat entrepreneurs who are coming down to places like Costa Rica to carve out their life. The mobile worker, the individual who doesn't necessarily need to be chained to a desk in an office. The telecommuter, as we used to call them. The guy who can run a business online or have a consulting firm or any kind of business you can necessarily imagine that doesn't have a physical location. The brick and mortar's gone. Can work and live anywhere. So these guys are now coming to us and saying, hey, I heard Costa Rica's great. I heard the climate's good. And I heard it's a nice place to work. What should I do? How do I get down there? So Lyle and I love to sit around and talk about how we do it and how others do it as well. We don't want to turn this into a big infomercial, but this is really the idea, is that there's a new wave of younger expat, not necessarily the retiree, not necessarily the global investor, but the individual who's somewhere between 30 and 45 years old, has or has just started a family, and has no reason physically to be in the United States or Canada. This is that new wave of expat that I'm talking about. And we're going to be covering this a lot more as we go forward on this program. Not only today, but in the coming weeks and months, because I'm running into more and more folks who are my age, leading my lifestyle and making it work. And I want to help you guys understand how we're doing it, because maybe you should be doing it too. Well, maybe not. Maybe you like getting that snow off your windshield every morning. Maybe that's your thing. But I'll tell you, there's a girl that I'm going to talk to in the last half of this show today. Her name's Kelly Mason. Another Canadian. Man, we're everywhere. We're like an infection, really. She's got a project called Pave the Road. She's doing something up in the northwest area of this country that I think is really, really important. Former film producer, lovely young lady. Again, just a great, great spirit. Coming down here and doing great, great things. I guess that's really what this is all about, guys. Really what it is I'm trying to reach out within this community, small as it is in Costa Rica, to talk to the expats who are like-minded, share the same spirit. Not just that entrepreneurial spirit, but the spirit whereby we want to do something more with our lives. We want to have a life of greater meaning, something of greater significance. We're finding that opportunity exists here like nowhere else. Huh. Stick around, guys. We're going to talk to Dan Stevens at the Costa Rican Times. You're listening to This Week in Costa Rica only on the Overseas Radio Network.
So you want to jump out your trick bag and ease on into hip bag, but you ain't just exactly sure what's hip.
Sit back and relax. You are tuned into the Overseas Radio Network.
Looking to invest, live, or retire overseas? Before you pack your bags, you need to log on to nagellog.com. It's the only stop you need to make for global business, asset protection, estate planning, overseas residency, and citizenship needs. Our experts have experience working in 41 countries around the world. Starting a business abroad can be overwhelming without expert help. We assist clients with foreign trust, foundations, corporations, LLCs, IBCs, and property acquisition. Need help with IRA assets abroad, capital formation, foreign securities issues, banking, brokerage, or finance needs? NagelLaw.com. We ensure compliance with U.S. tax and regulatory laws. We engineer global structures to help our clients achieve their personal and business objectives. To find out about our introductory personal asset protection plan, visit NagelLaw.com. NagelLaw.com. We represent capital overseas.
Belize, an asset protection haven where English is the official language. If you've been considering protecting your assets with an offshore trust or foundation, look no further. An asset protection structure from Georgetown Trust will serve you and your family for generations to come. Your grandkids will be grateful for the legacy that you were wise enough to establish for them today. You'll rest easy because Belize has some of the most protective trust laws in the world, and it's all done in English. Georgetown Trust has served thousands of clients over the past 15 years with integrity, efficiency, and privacy. Georgetown Trust also serves as a registered agent for IBC's mutual funds and insurance companies. If you're an offshore service provider, inquire about wholesale structures to fit almost any offshore need. Visit our website today, www.georgetowntrust.com, and see how simple and affordable getting started can be. Mention ORN and receive $100 off a structure formation. That's www.georgetowntrust.com.
You've decided that you want to move overseas for that quality of life experience you always dreamed of. But you don't want to give up the best of back home. We agree. Things like high-speed internet, safe neighborhoods where you can stroll along a shaded sidewalk, a place where you know your neighbors and you have friends close by. These are important. Grand Pacifica Beach and Golf Resort gives you the best comforts of back home paired with the exceptional lifestyle only available south of the border. Imagine strolling along over 3 miles of secluded beach, playing around a golf along the ocean, surfing a world-class break all to yourself, enjoying a fine meal on your balcony and toasting to another spectacular sunset. All this and more can be yours only an hour from Managua. Complete home and lot packages start under $100,000, and a nice home on the golf course is yours for the mid-twos. Come visit for a weekend and enjoy our oceanside golf course. Ride horseback on the beach, meet your future neighbors, and make some new friends. Grand Pacifica may be a place you'd like to call home. For more information, email Mike at Mike'sGringoLife.com. That's Mike at Mike'sGringoLife.com.
You're tuned in to OverseasRadio.com, the station to help you reach your dream destination.
This Week in Costa Rica is hosted by Canadian entrepreneur Corey Coates. Corey has been living and working as a professional in Costa Rica for over 5 years.
Well, I've been lost in my own place, and I'm doing
He's built a vast network of professional connections to help you with everything from immigration to relocation. Call in or send Corey an email to talk about the steps you need to take in making your dream of living in paradise a reality.
Welcome back to This Week in Costa Rica. I feel like this is my third attempt at a segment, but I don't know. Coming to you from the Overseas Radio Broadcast Facility here in Jaco Beach. Once again, I'm trying to sift through all the information about this great country. Going from one online newspaper to the other, trying to make heads or tails of it. I can't do it. So what I do every week on this segment is I call into the greater San Jose area to talk to my favorite filter, the guy who really seems to know what's going on, the guy who really seems to have a thumb on the pulse of this country. Dan Stevens from the Costa Rican Times. Dan, how are you?
I'm good, Corey. How was your weekend?
Not too bad. Not too bad. Discovered gin. That's a problem, but I'm going to work on that.
Oh, that's good. Hey, I've had my experiences back in the day on the with many types of alcohol, so I'm good.
All right. You know what? We get a lot of emails and a lot of questions on this particular program. I'm sure you do too at your online paper. People asking about medical tourism and dental tourism here in Costa Rica. Why don't we start from the beginning? Why is it so popular that people come down here in the first place to get these procedures done?
Well, when you look at what's going on in the States right now, and I'll just use the United States for an example, you've got Obamacare that's being implemented. And if you look at what it covers in general, it really only covers necessary surgeries, which is, according to law, what's necessary in their eyes. And dental, cosmetic dentistry, dentures, things like that, which were never covered by Medicaid really anyway, are not covered by Obamacare and that plan. You also look at cosmetic surgeries that are done down here as well, And the reason they're so popular is because if you look at, for example, a full mouth restoration, which is in essence getting all your teeth pulled and getting a whole new set of pearly whites, the average cost of that in the States is about $60,000.
Wow.
And that's, if you're looking, and most people that are doing that are upwards in their age, and that's part of their retirement fund, and it's not covered by their insurance, then they're looking at other places to get it done. And if you look at Costa Rica, Mexico, Philippines, they're becoming very, very popular for dental tourism, and medical tourism for that matter. Because, like, for example, the full mouth restoration, the cost is about $15,000. So you go $15,000 and you throw in a $5,000 vacation, which includes 5-star resorts here in Costa Rica and your airplanes and your airfare, and you're still saving $30,000. So there's really, and most of these dentists and doctors are trained in the States anyway.
And they speak English. So this is the thing. Like, I started, when I moved down here about 7 years ago, I started going to the dentist here in Costa Rica. I just paying cash out of pocket to get my cleanings, to get my checkups, to get my fillings done, that kind of thing. And it always is shocking to me, not only the quality and variety of service that you can get here readily, and not just like in the San Jose area and many, many great places, but the cost at the end of it was so reasonable. And, I wrote a blog about maybe 5-6 years ago about why Ticos seem to be smiling all the time. It's because they have these great teeth that they're super proud of because, a Costa Rican can very easily afford to maintain the medical care and the dental care that's available here.
Right. And most of the costs you look at in the States, I mean, it's the overhead of the salaries, and you've got, and that's cut greatly here in Costa Rica. Then you've got a lot of insurance and costs that are on top of that the doctors have to include in the price of their procedures. And then you've got most of these dental clinics here in Costa Rica, or a lot of them, can get these porcelain veneers and dental implants made right there on site in their own personal lab, so they don't have to order them from overseas.
Amazing.
And you can get these things done right away.
Now, this is becoming big business in Costa Rica, so much so that in my neck of the woods, up in Los Suenos, they're going to be having a big dental and medical tourism summit, I believe, at the end of this month.
Right. It's an international conference of medical tourism. It's from April 24th through 26th at Los Suenos. And ProMed, who is a big supporter of medical tourism here in Costa Rica, is going to be one of the sponsors of that. And it's a great way it's international. There's a lot of people coming here from around the world to really explore what Costa Rica has to offer in this field.
Is there probably, I don't want to sound all infomercially, but there's probably a good way that people can find information that you've dug out, at least, to help people get started in this field, right?
Yeah, we have a lot of articles online about this. We're actually developing an informational book on dental tourism and medical tourism, which we'll be sharing soon. And then the conference, actually, if you're able to contact, we'll be doing an article in the next couple of days. The Chamber of Commerce in Jaco, it costs about $500 to attend this conference. They've got a deal for locals if you're actually here in Costa Rica, where you're going to be able to go to it for either $125 or $150. It's a great opportunity to find out what's out there.
That's amazing. I'm going to try and get up there as well because, as you know, I'm a member of and friends with the Chamber of Commerce here in Jaco. So I think this would be a good opportunity to get up and do a little reporting. And I think it's fantastic what you're doing, and you guys are putting that book together as well. And again, not to turn this into an infomercial, but really there does need to be a sort of unified, accurate source of up-to-date information for this sort of thing, because it's a really popular topic for a lot of North Americans and Europeans who are looking at saving an enormous amount on necessary procedures that their insurance companies or their countries don't deem as necessary. I think it's great.
Yeah, and when you look out there, there is information all over the internet. And when it comes to, I want to find out about dental implants. Well, there's 50 sites on it. And instead of having it on 50 different sites, it's a better opportunity if you're all that information's in one location, which is why we're doing these ebooks. And again, I'm not trying to, they're going to be free, and we're not trying to sell anything on them. Well, all we're trying to do is just get that information out there to people.
I think that's the idea, Dan. And we're running a little bit long here in the segment. We're only going to be able to talk about this, but that's kind of the point, I think, with what a lot of folks like you and I are doing here, is to see if there's a way that we can disseminate this information, filter through it a little bit, and bring it to people in a more digestible fashion. And the great thing is I think you're a lot like me in that there's so much information out there, we're both a little bit overwhelmed. And the idea is that if we can hear boots on the ground sort of sift through it and then deliver it to people in a different fashion, it gives them a better opportunity to understand from a more human perspective, if you will, what options are available in this country and why we're still here, actually, and why we go to the dentist more than we ever have before, or why we're happy to go to the doctor in a heartbeat, forgive the pun, largely because it's just so easy, accessible, and affordable. But I can only imagine from North America looking down how difficult it would be by doing a couple Google searches to come up with this information and get some accurate information.
Right, and there's a lot of horror stories out there. I mean, in every country, be it U.S., Canada, Costa Rica, Mexico, etc., there are the good and bad places to go. And if you ever feel uncomfortable, if you're talking to a doctor or dentist down here and you get a bad vibe at all, then you know what? There's 100 others that are willing to take their place and they're make you feel comfortable and actually get that work done for you.
Great advice. Well, once again, we got to roll into another commercial here. As always, talking to Dan Stevens from Costa Rican Times. Great stuff. If you want links to some of the things we talk about, you can just go to thisweekincostarica.com. Send me an email if you want, info@thisweekincostarica.com, and I'll forward it over to Dan if necessary. Thanks again, Dan. Have a great week.
Thanks a lot, Corey. You have a great week as well.
Stick around, guys. We'll be right back.
So you want to jump out your trick bag and ease on into hip bag, but you ain't just exactly sure what's hip.
Sit back and relax. You are tuned into the Overseas Radio Network.
Worried about rising taxes, costly insurance, out-of-control healthcare, economic decline, staggering debt, mortgages, and retirement? It doesn't have to be this way. Escape to Ecuador, one of the most beautiful countries on the planet, and at EcuadorAtYourService.com. Be your guide. Ecuador has been named the #1 retirement destination in the world 3 times in a row. So if you're searching for beaches, jungles, farmlands, cities, affordable healthcare, and a richer lifestyle at half the cost, contact EcuadorAtYourService.com.
This is 90 Seconds with Joel Nagel on the Overseas Radio Network.
I have over $250,000 in assets I'd like to protect. Could you explain what an APT is?
Sure. An APT is short for an Asset Protection Trust. And this is quite simply the Cadillac of all asset protection strategies.
So what exactly does this Asset Protection Trust do for me?
It legally moves assets out of your personal name to a separate legal person. And when I say legal person, a juridical person, a person created by the contract, the trust itself, not a natural person. And this juridical person can simply not be sued in U.S. courts.
Now, considering that I've added this extra layer of protection to my assets through this APT, are there any other financial maneuvers or dealings that I can do through the APT as opposed to acting on my own behalf?
The Asset Protection Trust is also the foundational element to create, this foreign person to make investments that are closed to U.S. investors, such as hedge funds, foreign stocks, and various other non-SEC registered investment products. So there's a lot of reasons from an asset protection and from an investment standpoint that folks want to have an asset protection trust, or APT for short.
For more information on the 15 global strategies to protect your wealth, visit nagellaw.com. That's NAGELLAW.com.
This is Kathleen Petticourt and Leif Simon with the Live and Invest Overseas Minute on the Overseas Radio Network. How would a move overseas affect your tax burden? The good news is that moving overseas as a retiree, earning only retirement income, should be a tax-neutral event. Any local tax obligation in the country where you relocate will depend on where and how your income while living there is derived, and foreign retirement income, Social Security income or pension income, for example, typically isn't taxed anywhere in the world.
Your tax situation can be more complicated, and it is possible that you could acquire a new tax burden in the country where you relocate if you have earned income or investment income in addition to your retirement income. That's why you need to seek experienced professional counsel on this before making your move. Once you've taken up residence in your new country, some options for mitigating and managing your tax burden could be taken off the table.
For more information on making the leap overseas, visit us online at liveandinvestoverseas.com.
You're tuned in to overseasradio.com, your online radio resource about life abroad.
Good. What? What is it? This week in Costa Rica. Fun, informative, and your questions answered. Talk live with one of our on-air experts and start living your dream now.
Welcome back to This Week in Costa Rica. Another beautiful day here, coming into the rainy season. Still a great day here in Jaco, though. No complaints from this end. Now, I got to say, a couple weeks ago, I got into a conversation with my co-host here, Lyle Head, who's going to come in for hour 2. And, you know, we went off on a rant about electricity here in Costa Rica. More specifically, the reliability or lack thereof of service and then the cost that's associated with it. Well, I got a ton of emails from people here in Costa Rica trying to set me straight and help me get a little bit better informed about what's going on here. And one of the great emails that I got was from a gentleman named Trevor, fellow Canadian, who turns out is running a great website and a great service. So I wanted to bring him on the show to further this conversation, because I know for myself and for a lot of expats down here, one of the biggest expenses that we have to face is the cost of electricity. So without further ado, first, welcome to the show, Trevor.
And welcome for your invitation, Corey.
I really appreciate you coming on. And why don't we start with where this conversation actually got sparked? Because, and forgive the pun, because, you know, lately here in Jaco, we have had not only seen a considerable increase in the price of electricity, but there has been a gradual decrease in the reliability of electricity. But you're suggesting that maybe instead of looking at that, I should be looking a little deeper and see where the actual issue lies.
Yes, I read an article in Tico Times about 5 months ago. Well, this there was a Tico Times, and it was somebody else with a condo at Punta Leona that was lambasting ESE for his high electrical bills. And I've written articles on this before, and going back about 6 years ago when we had I think you were living here when we had the year of all the blackouts because of no rainy season starting and no water in the reservoirs. So we had the rolling blackouts, and you know, from a constructor standpoint and somebody with, shall we call it, a serious green bent, I find it offensive when people build in a way that, and build what I call energy pigs in a country, but I have to give Costa Rica a break here. Almost every industrialized country has a grid that just barely meets the demands.
Right.
They're just barely keeping ahead. And if a few things go wrong, well, then there's blackouts. I mean, hey, you have an ice storm in Quebec, and all of the, you know, New England states have no power. You know, it's a perfect example of that, of how easy it is to, that you were teetering on that edge in most grid systems. So, you know, we have to give, Costa Rica a bit of a break. And coming from Saskatchewan too, I mean, the power system in Saskatchewan and Costa Rica are basically twins. We just call it Sask Power, and here we call it ESE, but with the same motives that it was started in 1950 to electrify the country. Otherwise, it wouldn't be done. I mean, Costa Rica with mountains, Saskatchewan with a lot of space and few people, but fundamentally, they've done the job better than anybody else in Central America. You go to Panama and you see massive areas out that have no power whatsoever. So it's a permanent blackout.
No, I agree. And it's a relative conversation we have to have because, yes, I've spent quite a bit of time up in Nicaragua as an example. And many times, I mean, there just isn't power for the majority of the day and nobody's doing anything about it. That's all there is to it.
But, and I took exception to, your misinformation and talking about power rates. Yes, the power rates are higher, massively higher than Saskatchewan, but Saskatchewan, when I left, had the lowest electrical charge in all of North America. So that's not entirely a fair example. And yes, they are expensive here. However, California is more expensive. Miami is more expensive. So the gentleman that was complaining about his high power rate at Punta Leona says, well, this is about as logical as saying the Cruz Roja causes accidents. You were aware of that, of course.
Sure. Right.
Because, well, hey, every time you show up in an accident, the Cruz Roja is there, so they must cause the accident, right?
Okay.
So it's the same logic there that he sees the cause of this, and he says, well, yeah, the rates aren't cheap, and this is a poetic conversation considering they just announced another 4% increase this week. So it is poetic timing as per se. But the real culprit is in the construction and in energy conservation. And when people build in these ways, the difference between the gentleman from Punta Luna was comparing his condo in Punta Luna to a condominium in Miami. And that the power cost in Miami was lower. Yeah, the bill was lower. However, the kilowatt charges per hour are higher. But he's using less of them because of one simple thing. The U.S. and Canada have functional building codes that demand that you build to a certain standard. I get this, if you want to call it argument or statement, coming at me on a regular basis. Just last week, again, an American owner building down near a hotel was told by his engineer, you don't need to insulate the roof. And I just says, what drugs is he on? You don't need to insulate a roof? This is nuts. And I'll go back again to the building code in Saskatchewan and the building code in Las Vegas from an insulation standpoint are exactly the same. There's no difference. The slight difference is that the one in Canada is meant to keep the heat in the house. The one in Las Vegas is meant to keep the heat out. But this issue of thermal transfer is a two-way street. It doesn't matter what you're doing. So when we get into the tropics, everybody sort of ignored, it's a tropics, you don't need this stuff. And I just say that is absolute balderdash. There is no substantial fact to that absolutely it's very important unless you like living in a pizza oven.
Sure.
If you do, well, wonderful. But the whole point is trying to, diminish your costs, because let's also remember one thing about electrical is heating and cooling is what costs the big money. Your lights don't cost that much. However, I do handle and recommend and put in my own houses LED lighting, because you can cut the bill down like to sometimes as low as 10-15% of old incandescent lighting, and you're not going to get poison from the mercury like you do in CFL. So there's that measure. But your lighting bill out of a typical, certainly a residential, is not that big of a deal. But heating water and air conditioning, and again, not much solar is used. Now, solar is perfect for heating water. The climate we live in, you got about 363 days a year that you've got good solar capacity to heat water with. So, getting power from ESA to heat water is pretty much nonsensical.
Well, now here's where I'm at with this. And I agree with you in a lot of cases in terms of what's being built out there in the field. But, a couple things that I'd like to bring up based on just what you said thus far. I'm here in Vista Las Palmas, which is built to American codes and standards. Second, the heating and cooling is a separate bill that I receive quarterly and is not part of my regular daily electricity bill. And thirdly, in the last 6 months, I've seen my electricity bill go up as much as 80%. And I've done absolutely nothing here and actually monitor and condition the power that I have here in the condo because I need to protect my equipment. So it's really difficult to imagine that what's going on in my case, for example, as I'm watching my electricity rates climb and climb and climb month after month. It's hard for me to take the fault because I'm sitting in a condo that's perfectly and beautifully built.
Well, Corey, that may be your opinion, but if I was there inspecting it, I may have a very different report than what you have in that respect. So
to understand, and again, I'm not to be argumentative. That's not really my idea here. It's more,
that's not the point at all.
But to see a month after month after month increase in the cost of my electricity. It's really difficult to imagine that it's because of where I am or the construction that I'm sitting in. And it's just not simply they're just raising the rates.
No, I mean, it shouldn't be. I mean, you have to go back and look at your kilowatt consumption and see what's been happening with that. And, you know, even here, we get some fluctuations from month to month that makes no relative sense. I mean, you know, again, going back to Canada, it makes sense depending on, hey, what month of the year it is, you know, as to those fluctuations. But, I mean, I get some fairly sizable fluctuations in the kilowatts used from month to month, and I still haven't figured out why that happens myself. Now, we have no air conditioning. I mean, we're in San Antonio de Escazú, so A, there's no need for it, and B, you know, I try to avoid it if at all possible. But, you know, at the beach, that can be a little bit challenging. However, you know, there's two things, is that I also see an awful lot of, shall we call it, architectural design that is not friendly for tropical construction to begin with. A lot of this problem is initiated on the design board, that there's lots of things that can be done that will naturally cool off a house, but not many do it.
Okay, hold that thought there, Trevor. If you don't mind, I got to run to a quick commercial break, and we're going to continue this conversation because this is great information, super informative. Talking to Trevor Chilton right now. I want you guys to stick around. If you want to call in, of course you can. 888-741-7472 is the toll-free number. Going to take a short break. Be right back. Stick around, guys.
So you want to jump out your trick bag and ease on into hip bag, but you ain't just exactly sure what's hip.
OverseasRadio.com. Broadcasting from Panama to Paris and beyond.
Georgetown Global Metals is a division of Georgetown Trust, Ltd., an international financial services company headquartered in Belize with offices in Zurich, Switzerland, and Panama City, Panama. Georgetown Global Metals is a leader in the physical acquisition and storage of metals worldwide. The company utilizes the best and most state-of-the-art facilities in Switzerland, Germany, Singapore, and Panama to store metals inside or outside the customs borders of the countries in which we maintain storage facilities. Georgetown can also acquire and store virtually any strategic, industrial, or defense-oriented metal for our clients. Most metals can also be fully insured throughout the delivery and storage process with Lloyd's of London. For a free, no-obligation quote on any precious or other metals, acquisition, or storage, please contact Louis Eck at georgetown@btl.net. Mention you heard about Georgetown Global Metals on ORN and receive 1 month storage absolutely free. Again, that is georgetown@btl.net, or telephone International Country Code Belize +501 226 3569.
Establish your business in one of the most extraordinary cities in the world. Connect to a market of over 1.8 billion people from Dubai. Over 1,400 companies from around the world have made Dubai Airport Free Zone their Middle East and Africa headquarters. Dubai Airport Free Zone was rated one of the top free zones in the world. Let us help you set up your operations at Dubai Airport Free Zone and expand your market and sales in Asia and Africa. Call us at 214-537-9665 or send us an email at info@dafz-usa.com. That's info@dafz-usa.com.
Your perfect child has just been diagnosed with juvenile diabetes, a disease that leaves so many children subject to 30 insulin shots per day. This disease is caused by antibodies that attack insulin-producing pancreatic cells. Did you know that you can stop these antibodies in disease with an immunotherapy which uses the patient's own cells? We're here to answer your questions and to educate you on a non-invasive stem cell procedure using stem cells from the patient's own body. Get your questions answered by Dr. Alejandro Maesplace, whose research on stem cell therapy for diabetes is published in medical journals and applauded by medical professionals and professors at the University of Padua in Italy and Johns Hopkins University in the U.S. Treatment by Dr. Alejandro is the best choice of caring parents who prefer not to subject their child to any unnecessary risks or the negative side effects of chemical treatments like chemotherapy. Learn more at stemcellsjourney.com or call toll-free 888-806-6702. Also available on Skype, name @Maesplace.
Do you want to completely and legally end your obligations to the U.S. government, including your obligation to pay income tax on your worldwide income? The Nestman Group has experience in dozens of these cases, and we can show you how. Contact us at 1-602-604-1524 or on the web at www.nestman.com and sign up for our free blog. The Nestman Group, Wealth Preservation Solutions.
You're tuned in to OverseasRadio.com, the station to help you reach your dream destination.
You know what I just heard?
What? Costa Rica has the reputation of being the happiest country on earth.
But it gets better.
This Week in Costa Rica brings you the best information.
The best.
From the people who understand why so many choose to call this beautiful place home. Bringing you the latest information from expats, experts, and people just like you who chose to escape, retire, and live in Costa Rica. This Week in Costa Rica. Pura Vida.
And welcome back to This Week in Costa Rica. Man, oh man, what a great conversation today with Trevor Chilton right now. You know, we're talking a lot about the electricity rates and ISE, the government-run power provider here in Costa Rica. But more importantly, Trevor is helping me understand some of the construction issues that might be behind some of these high electricity costs. And just ahead of that break, we were talking about some of the construction that takes place here in Costa Rica, and some of it may not be, as you put it, Trevor, friendly to the tropical environment. Do you want to elaborate on that for me?
Well, okay, first of all, I love to hate concrete. And we know what great reverence that most builders, architects, and engineers here have for concrete. However, as you are well aware of, in Canada, we don't build walls out of concrete because if you did, you would freeze your patootie off come wintertime. Well, you would freeze it off because the R value of a concrete wall, you can look at one of those big herky concrete walls. Okay, I guess I should. R value is a way of measuring thermal transfer. The higher the R value, the less that particular body will transfer hot or cold from one side to the other. Now, in Canada, we have a minimum R value in the ceiling of R40, but you know, a concrete wall has the R value of about 4 sheets of paper.
Mm-hmm.
So you can imagine building your house with a wall out of 4 sheets of paper, how that would be to air conditioning. Well, that big herky concrete wall does exactly that. However, it gets worse because if the sun shines and touches that concrete wall, it heats it up during the day. And then at night, it turns your house into what I call the pizza oven, because all of those thousands of calories that are stored and reserved in that concrete wall during the day now start radiating out all night. So about the time the sun starts rising again, it's finally cooled off, and then it starts it all over again. So you're getting a double whammy from concrete. And so if there isn't a curtain wall put inside that, something to boost up the R value. I mean, I won't build out of concrete, period. Concrete walls, absolutely. If somebody comes to me and says, I want a house of concrete, I says, that's nice. Go find somebody else. Don't waste my time. I'm not interested in building what I call substandard housing. Now, many would find that shocking, and I consider it substandard housing. But, I mean, I stick my guns on it that it's not good in earthquakes, and it's not good in heat. Point blank. I mean, it doesn't flex very much. So, I mean, a lot of it is this perception that, you know, concrete is great in an earthquake because it won't come down. And I said, well, let's go back to 1988 and the earthquake in San Francisco. How did all the people get killed? They got sandwiched under tons of falling concrete. And when we just had the earthquake from September last year, and you saw how many hundreds of houses seriously damaged because 1- and 2-story houses are not seismically designed. Now, I look down in the Central Valley and I see all kinds of towers coming up. Well, those are seismically designed. Those will withstand it. You know, the Japanese showed us how to do it. But as far as houses, but that's, you know, that's getting into another area. But he says it's a double whammy with the concrete. He said it's not good in earthquakes because it isn't flexible, and it has no insulation value whatsoever, and then it absorbs heat, or absorbs and holds heat. So, I mean, 3 strikes, you're out is my attitude. I mean, I believe strictly in lightweight construction with insulated walls and especially insulated roofs, because that's where 85 Because the smart thing in designing for tropical construction is big eaves, or what we call aleros here, so that there's a lot of protection of the wall from the sun. So therefore you can reduce that heat coming in and that heat absorption by the walls by, and its effect would be maybe 10 or 15% of an air conditioning bill. But that roof is a killer. I just did a renovation up in Tamarindo, and at midday, that roof was 50 degrees Celsius. Wow. Inside there. And no insulation whatsoever. That's what one of the many things we were doing was adding insulation, a fiberglass insulation, and then putting on top of it what I call the Cinderella, which is reflective foil, because the reflective foil in a tropic situation has an R value of right around 38, 40 in that vicinity, because it bounces the heat back out instead of trying. It looks like bubble wrap with aluminum foil on it. Just like your shipping envelope, but it does an incredible job in combination, and it doesn't take that much insulation. So this house where the engineer says, oh, well, you don't need any insulation on a metal roof, and he says, yeah, right, and the entire insulation bill for that house would be like $2,000, which is nothing when you're, this is a 2,400 square foot house. $2,000 to insulate it so you're not living in an oven is nothing, and you can start racking that up in comparison to the AC bills, because the idea of a correct design is not needing to have AC to begin with. But if you make all of these fundamental errors in how the envelope of the house is designed, you're painting yourself into that box that you can't get out of, or you certainly can't get out of it cheaply. So again, a lot of this goes back to building science on the design table and using the right materials. I mean, I've been to large ferreteries here who don't even, I says, where's your fiberglass insulation? What are you talking about? Lost in translation again. It's available. I mean, I had one client said he spent a week looking for something like simple as fiberglass insulation. I says, and it's a pretty well-tested and proven product. We've been using it for, about 70 years now, sure. I think. But going back, that is the big difference between the Punta Leona was built with no standards whatsoever employed as far as energy efficiency concerned, whereas the condo in Miami, it was forced on the builder. He had to do that, or he wouldn't have gotten permits, and he certainly wouldn't have got to turnkey stage without getting shut down. That was the difference. So that's why his consumption was so much lower, is because they were managed to keep a lot more of the cold that the air conditioning is creating in the building envelope rather than it leaking out. I mean, but these buildings here make about as much sense as putting a screen door in a submarine.
Interesting. So now let's take a look at what some solutions can be for a lot of the listeners, taking all of this in, because, in many cases, a lot of folks come down here and really they just look at a couple condos. They assume that everything is built to code and built to be efficient and functional, and then they just purchase. I mean, what would you recommend for somebody who's thinking about moving down here and looking at either buying or building?
Well, okay. My first thing I would say is read my book.
All right. Where can we find that? Let's start there.
Okay. It's, of course, www.casasenscazoo.com. So CASASENSCAZU.com/ebook. And basically the book is that I started it over a year ago to give some better education to my own clients, and then it kind of grew a life of its own as I got called into doing more inspections on more houses and more, shall I call, horror stories or rescue missions to help people out of problems, like this house in Tamarindo. This is only a 7-year-old home that's spending $30,000 when zero should have to be sent, but between bad materials, bad methods, bad design, all in all, the owner is stuck with a $30,000 bill to get it up to those standards that he thought he might have been getting to begin with. Mm-hmm. But he didn't know what to look for. So I started this, and then basically it's turned into what you call it a consumer watch guide. It's kind of like buying a house in Costa Rica I liken to going through a minefield. So what I try to do in the book is tell you where are the mines, so you know when to dodge. And don't step there because, you're going to lose a foot or you're going to lose a wallet, one way or another. So it's what to look for, and when there is no technically the problem here is there's supposedly codes. However, there's no inspections that actually carry through from it being in a set of plans to ending up in the actual house. And electrical is horrific. I mean, there's lots of stuff here that wouldn't have passed a code from 30 years ago, let alone today, and some of that's brand new construction. But if you don't know what to look for, then, it says you're really flying blind. So that's what I try to do in the book is, help my own customers out, and then somebody else just say, hey, if you're buying existing houses, this helps you look for at least and analyze what you're going to have to fix and have an idea what it's going to cost you to fix this stuff. And more importantly, if you're building new, is to make sure that it actually is going to happen. Because if you're relying on any kind of inspection, there is no functional inspection. There's no third independent body who actually says, did this get done?
Right.
It's strictly up to that engineer or architect that's supervising the job. However, that can be a bit of a case of having the fox guarding the chicken coop.
Sure.
Not exactly independent. So, I see lots of stuff that simply wouldn't even come close to passing the codes we're used to. And those codes come about for some pretty good reasons. It's not just somebody in a back room trying to figure out how to make life difficult for all the builders and whatnot. Now, in one hand, I like building here because I got a lot less red tape. However, it's certainly caveat emptor on steroids is that as long as that builder is conscientious, then it'll get done. If they're not conscientious, then all hell can break loose. I've run
absolutely
into people.
True. You know what, Trevor? I hate to do it. We've got to leave it there because I got to run to the news right now. I greatly appreciate your email. I greatly appreciate this conversation. I feel like it's the first of many. Right now, guys, we're talking again with Trevor Chilton, and it's casasenescazoo.com. I'm going to put that website link up on my website, which is thisweekincostarica.com. And, of course, you guys want to chime in on this conversation? Telephone works, 888-741-7472, or email info@thisweekincostarica. Trevor, thanks so much for the call.
You're welcome, Corey.
So you want to jump out your trick bag and ease on into hip bag, but you ain't just exactly sure what's hip.
Sit back and relax. You are